Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to forgotten objects in every 1980s home, life in America. And you know how it is with these reactions, I enjoy them and I'm continuing to do them. But forgotten objects from the 1980s, or specifically in 1980s homes, I don't really know. I mean, it'll probably be things like the Walkman. Was that from the 80s? I don't even know. Just certain things that, I mean, I've done like reactions to this kind of stuff from the 60s and the 50s. So 80s like items and objects, I'm gonna probably, I mean, most likely I'm gonna be aware of more of them than I was aware of stuff from the 60s, etc. But we're gonna check this out and see. Hopefully going to enjoy, and hopefully if you're from this era, this is a nice little throwback for you. But we're gonna check this out. Links are in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions to films that I can't post obviously onto YouTube and other stuff as well. But yeah, links are there for those interested. But yeah, let's check this out and see some of these objects.
Not many things can transport you back to the 1980s, quite like thinking about the home you lived in during that decade. Some of the things are classic 80s, while others are more subtle. But nonetheless, all of these home features remind
I've definitely seen this shelving unit in a classic film in the past.
us of our past, especially with so many of them gone forever. Although garage door openers were invented during the Great Depression, it would take an economic downturn in the 1970s to usher in a new era of consumer spending during the 1980s. During this decade, homeowners across the country began to install automatic garage door openers. Luckily, during this time, wireless technology was now also available, so the doors could be opened using a remote from inside the car.
I've never had a garage. Wherever I've lived, I've never once had a house that has a garage door, or a garage in general. So I don't even know what they're like in general. I mean, they are quite a typical thing in US homes. Like, they'll always just be like beside the home. Obviously, that's not for everyone, but sort of the typical suburban US home, you'll see that. Not in the UK, man. I mean, you do have them. I'm trying to think of, yeah, some houses will have them, but I'd say it's probably like a 80% chance a house won't have them to a 20% chance a house will have them. Yeah, they're nowhere near as common. I would say so anyway. I don't think they're anywhere near as common as they are in the US. So I can't even relate, to be honest.
Sewing machines used to be a standard feature of pretty much every home.
Really?
And most of the time they could be found in the laundry room.
So people just fix up their clothes themselves. I mean, it's useful and it's obviously a lot cheaper. Nowadays, either you just get rid of your clothes, or you'll, I guess, send them off to someone else for someone else to do it. But I guess in these times, you just get a little rip, you're going to just do that up yourself.
A sewing station was necessary to mend holes, hem pants, and to even sew your own clothing. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find a sewing machine in any home.
We actually had one in our home, because my girlfriend was doing like fashion, and obviously with fabrics and stuff you'd use it, but she never actually used it and she got rid of it. But I mean, it's obviously a useful thing to be able to do.
Cane wood and chrome accented chairs were all the rage during the 1980s. The Brewer Chair Company produced many of these unique furniture pieces, with them being found most commonly around the dining room table. Today, seeing these types of chairs takes us right back to that.
These are just like, what, cheap chairs? Are they comfortable? I don't look it, but maybe they are. They look very rough to sit on.
That decade. And you might also remember how the wood on the chairs would splinter or get holes in it, which made them less comfortable to sit in.
Would it splinter into your bum? Like your bum cheek just gets a splinter on it? Would that happen? That would not be nice.
Popcorn ceilings once dominated the ceiling texture business.
Oh, I did have this in my home, in my old home. I remember this. I don't remember what room though. I mean, maybe not like this actually. I think it was kind of like this, but it was a bit more like of a different style. But it's called popcorn ceiling. What?
In the 1980s found it to be a staple of most homes. Not only did it cover up plain flat ceilings, but it also made imperfections disappear. Some popcorn ceilings even had sparkling glitter mixed in to make an even bigger statement.
Damn. I think this is my bedroom. My bedroom ceiling was popcorn ceiling.
Moving these dated ceilings are a priority when you renovate your home. Televisions in the 1980s were built large and boxy. Much like the 1970s, they were used as furniture in the living room, and they often took up lots of space. These console televisions also often came with a remote control to make flipping through the growing number of cable channels easier. In the bedroom, TVs were becoming smaller and more portable, so they could be set on top of a dresser or even hooked up to a new video game console.
Damn.
Electric typewriters exploded during the 1980s. The emergence of expensive home computers made these cheaper word processing devices much more appealing. Electric typewriters were more forgiving than the manual typewriters, but their time was limited. By the end of the decade, personal computers began to make their way into homes everywhere.
I reckon in the early 80s, people know that these were going to, there was going to be a point where these were going to be just not used anymore. Because the computer was probably in the making, and a few people had certain computers, and then obviously they changed and the technology got a lot better. This was probably introduced just at the wrong time. If it was like 10 years before, it would have had a long lifespan, but probably just wasn't there for long enough. Or early enough, sorry.
Keyboard, along with computer software, quickly replaced those electric typewriters that were so popular. Even the walls in homes made a statement during the 1980s. With the emergence of the colorful 80s aesthetic, maybe a little inspired by the Rubik's Cube craze, wallpaper made it easy to add pops of color. The walls featured pretty much all the colors in the rainbow, and may have also included geometric patterns. Floral patterns were also hugely popular, and they went perfect with the floral comforters that covered many of the beds during this time. Recipe boxes are now considered family heirlooms, but during the 1980s, they were an active part of the kitchen.
See, these would have been so useful. Obviously, now you can just go on Google and just search recipes for anything, but in these times, you're going to have to, not have to, but if you want to find out the recipe for something, you're really going to either have to have it written down somewhere or just remember it. So these would have been so damn useful. I remember when I was young, there was, cookbooks and stuff, and there still is cookbooks, but it's just, you don't really need to get those now. Obviously, maybe some people just enjoy to have them, and that's fair enough. But you don't need it. You just go on Google and you just find any sort of recipe for anything. It's crazy how it's changed so much. Even in the last, 10, 15 years, it's changed a lot. But then from this time to now, it's so different.
Before the internet digitized all recipes, special family recipes were stored safely together in a wooden or tin box located on the kitchen counter for easy access.
Oh, wow.
The often stained and worn cards were proof that they had been used religiously throughout the years. During the 1980s, cooking and baking during the holidays always included flipping through the old recipe box to find that perfect dish.
But I can tell that's going to be so nostalgic for some people, this specific thing.
Long before cell phones, many families had to share just one phone, and that phone was often attached to the wall in the kitchen. This made private calls difficult, but if you were lucky enough to have a long cord, you could wind yourself into another room. It's not surprising that during the 1980s, kids wanted their own telephone in their bedroom. A popular Christmas gift for kids during this time was their very own novel.
No way. That's crazy. I can understand again, but this is seen as what? Maybe getting a console now for Christmas. It was like getting a phone in these times. And I do get it, but it's just crazy to think that was the case.
Phone.
I guess it's actually equivalent to getting a phone for Christmas or something, but just a different type of phone. But that's a wild difference.
Which saw them take the shape of popular cartoon characters.
Oh, damn. Garfield.
How many of you remember recording your answering machine message over and over until you got it just right?
Huh?
Answering machines with cassette tapes was the only way to know if you missed a call while you were out. The blinking light with a display that showed you how many messages you had was the first thing you checked when you walked back through the door.
Wait, so I thought answering machines were just connected, it was just in the phone. Because you'll see it in in certain shows, again, from the past, like the answering machine would be a thing where you'd sort of hear someone talk. But I just thought it was connected to the phone, unless it was after that, but beforehand, this was how it was done.
Not every home had floor-to-ceiling mirrors, but you probably saw it enough in movies and on TV. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors were pretty common in homes because they added a feeling of space. But the 80s
What the hell is this? Is the most confusing kitchen I've ever seen.
took it to a whole new level, with mirrors on everything. It seems that just about every room had at least one large mirror hanging on the wall.
Thank God that was left back in the 80s. I'm just going to say.
1980s parents invested a lot of money in a set of encyclopedias that filled their kids' brains with lots of knowledge. There were facts on just about every subject, and these books were perfect to help with schoolwork. The only problem was they were outdated nearly as soon as they were printed. Nevertheless, many homes had a special shelf.
I mean, I still saw them when I was in school. You still saw them, like dictionaries, encyclopedias. You'd still see those things because I guess in school specifically, you're not really allowed to. Well, you're not allowed to use your phone. So books will have a use for that. I feel like probably forever because using phones is going to be one of those things that I don't see ever being allowed in school when in lesson. So I do get it, to be fair. I mean, and that's why I saw these when I was growing up, and I'm sure you still have these now. I'm almost certain there's not going to just go outdated, right? Even though the timing was wrong, there still is some use for them, you know.
To display these prestigious books. With the expensive cost of buying a new set, many households had outdated books, but they were still a classic 1980s fixture. Popcorn and watching movies at home go hand in hand. But
What? This is still the same?
in the 1980s, as video stores were popping up everywhere, families began to use electric air poppers more and more.
Bro, when I found... Because, I mean, you can literally now go to the shop, either buy popcorn that's already made, or you'll buy, like, unpopped popcorn, or just corn at that point, and it'll be in, like, a cardboard box or whatever, and you'll just put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and then it's popped. But when I was young, I remember we had one of these, and we didn't use it often, and then I think it broke. But it was always so exciting when we had the popcorn machine like used. Again, I don't know if these are really needed anymore because people probably still have it for the nostalgia and stuff. But again, you can just put it in the microwave now. But when I was younger and these were a thing, I thought it was so cool, man.
Although people had microwaves, the microwave popcorn would end up burnt. So
That's
instead,
true.
people had air poppers to make big bowls of popcorn for movie nights. Whether you were watching a TV movie filled with commercials, or had just rented a stack of movies from your local rental store, air-popped popcorn was a necessity, especially in the homes of the 1980s.
But you can sort of see how it is kind of inconvenient to have a device that is just used for popping popcorn. Like at this point, it's like you can just use that money for something else. It's a bit of a waste, but it was also cool. Again, when I was young, it was, I don't know, it's just exciting to have it, to see it like pulled out or whatever, and then being used. Is that it? Just pictures now? But that is the most 80s looking house. This looks like it's before the 80s, to be fair. This looks like it's from like the 60s, 70s. Again, I'm not really an expert of that, but there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. I do really enjoy these. Hopefully it's a nice little throwback for you all as well. And yeah, let me know your thoughts about these forgotten objects, and if you still use them. I mean, on the off chance that you decide, you know what, I'm happy to use these and I don't need to use the updated version or whatever it is now. Yeah, let me know. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed, and until next time. Peace.